All right, here we are. We're at Sal's place. Just here, kind of on the border of Milton and Oakville. So there's the Norwood we're going to be using to cut up some of the wood. He's got a nice place out here. He's got lots of property. He's getting a new driveway put in, so we got a little bit of noise to deal with, but that's all right. And then in the back there is his shop. So we'll take a look in there once we're done some manual labor today. But he also does a lot of firewood, as you can see. He's got lots of bushels of firewood there, which is great. So let's see what trouble we can get into today. just finished sawing up all the wood over there, and now I'm here with Sal,
getting a tour,
who runs this place, and he's going to give us a tour of what's in here. I've seen some stuff on the internet, and there's some pretty interesting stuff in there, Sal.
Yeah, we'll have to just get a tour, I guess.
Yeah, let's do it. Show me what's in here.
Okay. Stickers. These are like professional stickers. I bought these ones. So Tony had the job of cutting these down from 6 foot to 4 foot recently. But that's like a big rack of professional stickers. So they got the cove to prevent stickers and stuff.
Oh, okay. So the these two here rest on the wood.
Yeah, so it's minimizing stain basically by allowing airflow between there. Just kind of helps to break it up.
Nice.
Nothing's 100%. There's a lot of other things that cause sticker stain and so on and so forth. But here we are.
Holy hell.
It's a nice temperature in here.
Yeah, sure is. Let's close that door.
Yeah.
All right, well, so the first glaring thing that you see here is this massive table. So what is this?
This is, it's an Avid CNC. So this one's 12 by 5, and it's got a 6 horsepower spindle. I mostly use it for dedicated flattening.
Okay.
So it's mostly operating as a 5 by 12 joiner planer. And yeah, we do a lot of live edge. This is a great way to get the bigger stuff flat.
For sure. So you just basically put the board on here, and then this head will...
Yeah, it'll run a box pattern, and it'll just basically drop down as it's running that box pattern. And essentially we just shim the slabs with some clamps to get a little inventive, shim it flat, and just start running a course and whittling at them, and then flipping them. Typical to joining plane, you're just flipping them as you go once you have a flat face.
Right.
And yeah.
And this King machine keeps up with all of that?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. I went to 2 machines, mostly for the planer.
Okay.
But I'm also running 2 machines on the head for the CNC when I'm cutting, on 4-inch tubes, mind you, but just cuts down on the dust. The CNC does spray a lot of dust off to the one side.
Sure.
So yeah, the 2 machines helps, and I'm not cleaning them out as quickly, so it just kind of gives a little more suction. And
oh yeah, for sure. And then beside it is a pretty large planer. Holy. Yeah. How big is that?
I think it's a 35-inch cutter with a 33.5-inch table. So it's kind of like a modern take on a 36. Basically a 33-inch Cantech. This is new. We haven't run it a lot yet. It's running on a phase converter. There's your big cutter head. It's 25 horsepower cutter head. So it eats wood pretty quickly. The main issue is keeping up with it with dust collection, like a couple boards and.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
But the cut quality is unbelievable, actually.
This table saw looks hilarious. Parked beside this thing.
I know.
It's like usually the table saw is the bigger thing, right?
Yeah. The planer, we were really pushing the limits of how big could we go.
And then you sell these slabs, right?
Yeah. I sell the slabs. We use them. I am building furniture and stuff as well, but sell them, and I provide surfacing and flattening services.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're a little lower in stock right now, just mostly coming off the winter. I don't really cut through the winter.
Okay.
So I'm kind of making wood seasonally. I collect logs through the year. I mostly saw in the spring. I'll saw a little bit in the fall. I don't like when it's really cold or too hot. That's kind of a deal breaker. Yeah, some nice blue stain pine. Most of the wood's urban salvaged. A little bit comes from like local woodlots around here and stuff. A lot of things are still in the way of development around here, I would say.
Okay. So your background, you started doing furniture, yeah?
Yep. I grew up woodworking with my grandfather. Went to school for cabinet making at Mohawk College. Cabinet making made me lose interest in woodworking. It was very box oriented and like sheet material oriented.
Yeah.
So I stopped for a few years, and I'd say about 10 years ago, I got into sawmilling. I have a bunch of friends that are tree services, and they were destroying the trees to get rid of them.
Right, yeah.
So that kind of made me, want to repurpose them and stuff. I thought I needed just a sawmill, so like it snowballed from there.
Yeah, it always really seems to do that. Eh?
Yeah, one part to the equation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of where I want to be right now. I just like doing things on my own and keeping things small and enjoying what I'm doing while I'm doing it instead of managing people. But
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. No,
And
this is really cool.
We do a lot of walnut just because people like walnut, and luckily in this area we do have a lot of walnut. Not so much cherry, but a lot of ash comes into emerald ash borer. And
look at this piece. This is gorgeous.
Yeah, that's a big veneer walnut log.
Yeah,
about 33 inches in diameter.
That seems cheap.
Yeah, that one's flattened. I only scaled this one at 9 feet. It's got a, those are the kiln probe holes down there.
Oh, okay.
So I try to probe. It is the best way to take a moisture content reading because you're actually taking a core reading from the wood.
Right.
And you're reading it from the outside of the kiln chamber, which I'll show you in a bit. But the idea there is to drill holes in something that's not the most expensive part of the tree.
Yeah.
So in this case, that's the least expensive.
Yeah,
part of this log.
better than down there.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
You're getting a good reading on the log.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so what do we got here?
Right. So this is a wood boiler. I put some models. A CL6048 classic wood boiler. So this is an original type of wood boiler.
Okay.
We burn all the waste wood from sawmilling, which you'll probably see from behind me here.
Okay.
And also for making firewood and stuff. And,
okay,
and
so this is all the waste stuff that we were pulling off.
Waste stuff, trees that have nails and hardware. Like,
okay.
I think this piece of wood's got like an eyelid in it or something. Sawmill, walnut sapwood, pine for making some dimensional up there.
Yeah.
And things that are too crotchy, limby, too short, whatever.
Okay. So that goes in here.
Yeah, it's obviously off now.
Yeah.
But it heats the house, the shop, and 2 hot water tanks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just for this building. Okay.
Yeah, not just for the building. The real value actually is heating the house as opposed to the shop, but and it also puts all of the wood burning outside. So all that, instead of dragging wood into the house to burn it,
yeah, for sure.
For heat, it just keeps everything outside. You do have to come out here and load it. You can also load it for like a 12-hour burn if you really want to.
Oh, you can?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It's got a 500-gallon water jacket on the back of it.
Yeah.
And it's full of one of my clients, like charcuterie handle cutoffs.
Oh, okay.
Right now, but yeah, so it heats the water jacket. The idea is to not boil the water. It keeps it at 180 degrees, and then it pumps that 180 degree water around to a bunch of different rads in the furnace, in the shop.
Okay.
And then drop from that.
Can you also use that for like in-floor heating and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yep. Had we put that in the shop to begin with, we could have done that.
Okay.
So the shop just has 2 simple little rads, and it keeps the shop really toasty. Like you can have the shop at whatever temperature you want, really.
Oh yeah.
I like to keep it a little cool because I do my lawn johns on and stuff.
Yeah. Especially if you're coming in and out all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you spend a bunch of time processing wood, but I see here you've got a little project on the go here.
Yeah, so I collect nuts from trees that are coming down and kind of give them a new home. So if a tree's coming down, I'll take nuts from the trees, and mostly walnut, but there's some things mixed in here for like diversity.
Yep.
And there's actually a row of butternuts here that came from a big butternut tree that had to be removed.
Okay.
And some oaks on the side here. I think that's a cherry over there. I've learned a lot of things as this has kind of developed. The squirrels eat all the nuts. The rabbits chew everything to the ground every year. So hence the weepers. Yep. And Tony was just out here watering it this morning. Okay. And I mulched them with the sawdust just to retain as much water as we can because we have really bad soil here. Okay. And for a long period of the summer, it doesn't really rain a lot. So okay. Yeah. Doing my best to keep them alive. But they're actually, it takes about 3 years to put roots in the ground. So they're actually, you can see actually just that cherry tree there is starting to really grow well. Okay. Yeah. And these 2 oaks here, they're just starting to bud, but they're also really growing well. So they're coming around. And some of the older trees actually started on that end. The older trees are on that end. So they're probably, I'd say about 5 years old, 3 to 5 feet tall. And I've got a couple that I planted about 10 years ago that are just starting to produce nuts. They're about 10 to 15 feet tall. Okay. Not a lot of those. Shout out to Dan and Candace. They helped me plant a lot of the nuts. Nice. And also the squirrels. I gave up planting them and just started pouring the nuts out on the ground. Let the squirrels do the work. That's so true. So this is the kiln. Kiln's basically a 40-foot reefer can that's divided in half. Okay. You could make the kiln the whole thing. It's a little easier for me to organize the tetrising of loads, is what I call it. Different thicknesses and moisture contents if the kiln's a little smaller. 21 feet long, 2 10-foot stacks of lumber. I think it's about 6 feet to the fan because my buddy hits his head on it. And then it's a dehumidification kiln. So it's running a dehumidifier. That's almost misleading a little bit. because it's only running a dehumidifier if the wood's very wet, if you're putting green wood in. Since you're putting air-dried wood in it, the dehumidifier is very rarely going to run. It's actually going to run a humidification cycle and keep the air very moist, especially for thicker wood. So it's a very slow drying process. It's got probes that you drill into the wood to read the moisture content, and then just takes an average from there, and the computer dictates a cycle based on the instruction manual, essentially.
Those are the holes we saw earlier.
Yeah, the holes we saw earlier in the wood. And that's giving you a good core reading, especially when you get into thicker woods, because the surface reading is very misleading. And again, that's why we're keeping humidity up, because you don't want to over dry the outside of the wood. That's where case hardening comes from.
Right.
So you don't want that hot, dry air. You want hot, wet air.
Okay.
And slowly the wood's going to wick moisture from the core and out.
Okay.
So here we go. This is a control panel.
Oh, okay.
So basically you just have two fans here on switches, big 220 fans.
Yep.
And the wood's obviously stickered inside, and baffled. Baffling is really very important because we want to force airflow through the wood, even to the bottom boards, and not have any path of least resistance with the airflow.
Okay.
There's a light in here to heat it in the winter, just to keep it like above zero.
Okay.
It's got a compressor which is running a dehumidification cycle, powered vent, so if it goes over temperature, it will kick out the heat. And the reason for that is the compressor on a lower temperature cycle, the compressor will actually just raise the heat above 90 degrees Fahrenheit on its own. And the humidification, so it's just keeping moisture in the air, and heat pump for heat. So this is heated by electricity. It's fairly efficient in the grand scheme of things. The reefer can really helps with that.
Sure.
It's way more expensive in the winter, obviously, than at this time of year.
Sure.
It's already 90 degrees or 80 degrees outside. It could be heated by the boiler. You could preheat it with the boiler and bring it up to temperature. The equipment to do that's pretty expensive versus what we're really producing per year. It's not a lot of lumber or anything crazy.
Right.
And then different cycles for different thicknesses of wood, which is really important.
Okay.
So essentially what's going on here is it's maintaining, we're towards the end of a cycle, so it's maintaining about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. If it goes over that, again, it will vent it. And the wet bulb is basically the humidity in the room measured by the evaporation off a probe on like a wick. It looks like a shoelace, and it's measuring actual evaporation in the air. So if it went over 90, I think it's 96 or 98 it's set at right now. If it goes over that, it'll kick the dehumidifier on to pull moisture out of the air. But because we're almost done here, these being the moisture content probe, so probe 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 through 11, we're averaging 9% moisture content. 8 or less is kiln dried, so like it's pretty darn close.
Yep.
I set it to 6 to kick off, and the reason for that is I find it kicks off. You could still have a couple high probes, so I like to run it down. That gets the higher end of the probes at like 8, the lower end of the probes at 6, and the average when it hits 6, it'll just kick the whole thing off. So that'll probably happen, I'm going to guesstimate, say the end of the week here.
Okay.
Like that. So it's basically done, and then I'll unload it when we have some time, probably after the long weekend.
And so what species are in here right now?
That's a good question. I think a little bit of Siberian elm. There's a little bit of butternut. It's all limwood or smaller logs, like 16-inch and under, and then mostly black walnut.
So how long would it have been in here then?
So because of the time of year it is, spring, I had run through all my loads of air-dried wood, and people were asking for charcuterie stock, which I didn't have. So I put a load in straight from green. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with putting green wood into the kiln. It just takes twice as long. So this has been in here, I'm going to say close to 2 months now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe a month and a half, something like that. You can speed it up. I never deviate from what the instructions recommend. There's a certain amount of moisture loss per species that you can remove a day.
Yep.
I usually just set it to what the instruction manual. I'm never in a rush to make wood. I just set it to the instruction manual.
Sure. Well, and you have a lot to risk by rushing it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's definitely some gray area there. Once you go off the charts, you're on uncharted territory. You're on your own. Even riskier with thicker material.
Okay.
But yeah, so this has been in there for a little while. Normally we're just running air-dried wood. I'd say air-dried wood, like under 20%, you're probably a month. If it's like 12%, like fully air-dried wood, you're probably 2 weeks on 1-inch and 5/4 boards. Everything doubles essentially for thickness as you go up.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, Sal, thanks so much for the tour.
Yeah, no problem.
And thanks again for processing all that lumber for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's wild. So the next thing to learn is how to stack it properly and get the stickers in right and make sure that we end up with a really good yield.
Yeah, exactly. I'll walk you through that part, and
Yeah.
You got some setup to do on your own end to get that going, but
For sure.
you'll get there. Now you're the lumberman.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Al.
Thanks.